Mr. President, I have the honor to speak on behalf of the African Group. The group associates itself with the statement of the non-aligned movement. I wish to make the following remarks. Mr. President, the total elimination of nuclear weapons remains the only absolute guarantee against their use or threat of use. In this context, the group reiterates the urgent need for our planet to be free of nuclear weapons, as their presence constitutes a grave threat to global peace and security and an existential threat to humanity. Africa supports the principle of complete nuclear disarmament as the utmost prerequisite for maintaining international peace and security. It is in this spirit that the African Group welcomes the adoption of the landmark Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons on 7 July 2017. The African Group stressed that the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons does not undermine the NPT, but rather complement and strengthen the nuclear non-proliferation regime with the NTP as its foundation. The group calls on all member states, especially the nuclear weapon states and those under the so-called nuclear umbrella, to seize this opportunity and pursue the goal of a nuclear-free world by signing and ratifying this important treaty. Mr. President, for the African Group, the highest priority for the United Nations should remain nuclear disarmament and achieving the total elimination of nuclear weapons, which is the overall objective of the NPT. The group reiterates its deep concern over the slow pace of progress by the nuclear weapon state to accomplish the total elimination of their nuclear arsenals in accordance with their legal obligation and undertakings under Article 6 of the NPT and the various relevant agreed outcomes of the NPT Review Conference. The group therefore insists on the implementation of all agreed measures undertaken by the nuclear weapon state in the context of the treaty. The group reaffirms the contribution on nuclear weapon-free zone across the world to the overall objective of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. They represent a significant milestone towards achieving nuclear disarmament and non-proliferation objectives, thereby enhancing global and regional peace and security. In this context, the African Group reiterates its commitment to the Treaty of Pelindaba, which reaffirms the status of Africa as a nuclear weapon-free zone and as a shield for the African territory, including by preventing the stationing of nuclear explosive devices on the continent and prohibiting testing of those weapons on the African continent. Mr. President, the African Group reiterates its deep concern regarding the lack of implementation of the commitment and obligation of the 1995 NTP Review Conference resolution in the Middle East regarding the establishment of a zone free of nuclear weapons and all other weapons of mass destruction. The group strongly welcomes the convening of the first session of the Conference of the Establishment of a Zone Free of Nuclear Weapons and Other Weapons of Mass Destruction in the Middle East under the auspices of the United Nations, pursuing a General Assembly Decision 73/546 to negotiate a legally binding treaty on the establishment of the nuclear-free zone. The group also welcomed the successful outcome of the session as reflected in the report of the UN Secretary General contained in document A/75/63. The group calls on all states and organizations invited to the conference to actively participate in this conference in good faith as a practical step toward implementing the 1995 resolution on the Middle East and creating equitable, sustainable, and non-discriminatory security architecture in the region. The group further stressed that the 1995 resolution on the Middle East remains an integral and essential part of the package and the basis upon which consensus were reached on the indefinite extension of the NPT. The group wished to highlight the validity of these commitments and obligations until their full implementation. Mr. President, the African Group reiterates its regret that the non-NPT review conference was unable to agree on the final outcome document, despite the concerted effort of non-nuclear weapon states, particularly from Africa. As we prepare for the 10th NPT review conference, the group calls on all states to work towards the actualization of the goals and objectives of the treaty, as well as the previously agreed outcomes of its review conference, including achieving its universality. The group underscores the importance of the continued respect of the inalienable right to peaceful use of nuclear energy and stress the central role of the International Atomic Energy Agency in this regard through technical support and cooperation, as well as maximizing the use of science and technology for socio-economic development. Mr. President, the African Group wishes to emphasize humanitarian consideration in the context of all deliberation on nuclear disarmament, particularly its serious concern for the catastrophic humanitarian consequences of the use of or detonation of nuclear weapons, either by accident or as a deliberate action. The group calls on all states, particularly nuclear weapon states, to take into consideration the catastrophic humanitarian consequences of the use of these weapons on human health, the environment, and with economic resources, among others, and to take necessary measures aimed at dismantling and renunciation of these weapons. The group wishes to reiterate the importance of achieving universal adherence to the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty, taking into consideration the special responsibility of nuclear weapon states. The group believes that the CABT offer hope of halting further development or proliferation of nuclear weapons, thereby contributing to the goal of nuclear disarmament. The group acknowledges the overwhelming support of the international community in promoting the entry into force of the CABT and calls on nuclear weapon states and those yet to accede to the NPT, which are listed in Annex 2 of the treaty and have not yet signed or ratified the CABT, to do so without further delay. Mr. President, while reaffirming the importance of the work entrusted to the Conference of Disarmament, the group expressed its concern at the many years of impasses which has prevented the CD from fulfilling its mandate as the world's single multilateral disarmament negotiating forum. The group, therefore, calls on the CD to resume substantive work, taking into account the security interests of all states and without further delay. Finishing, Mr. President, The African Group underscored the importance of the commemoration of the International Day for the total elimination of nuclear weapons as an integral part of the multilateral disarmament effort. The African Group looks forward to the actualization of the goal or objective of a nuclear weapon-free world. I thank you, Mr. President.